The purpose of this video is to briefly analyze the psychology of a truly sickening phenomenon. A number of male fertility doctors throughout the world have been secretly inseminating women with their own sperm. This is a profound abuse of power and violation of women and couples, and in most places it's not even illegal. So what is the psychology behind this deplorable behavior? Let's start here. Evolutionary psychologists tend to explain male sexual behavior as being motivated by the impulse to spread his genes and to continue on his own lineage. This may be part of it, but it's certainly an oversimplified and incomplete explanation that doesn't account for homosexual behavior or any sexual behavior that doesn't involve intercourse. Not all sex is motivated by reproduction, of course. The spread his genes view also doesn't account for more psychologically based motivators for sexual behavior in men. For example, the pleasure principle, the simple fact that sex feels great, so men seek it for that reason. And along with that, there's also the pleasure that comes from pleasuring. It's also possible that men are seeking intimate connection, the type of connection that can only come from feeling embraced while in a state of deep vulnerability. And often sex is an inherently vulnerable activity to engage in, as the physical nakedness often brings about a sense of emotional nakedness. Additionally, men may be seeking validation, a confirmation that they are attractive and virile, and that they are worthy of being someone's chosen one. Nevertheless, the spread his genes view has merit. If such an instinct was not part of the heterosexual male's biology, the human species would not have become so prolific. Now, to be clear, I'm not crediting men with the survival of the human species. Without women, we are nothing. But we can see how this is important as an evolutionary impulse. I'm focusing on this spread his genes view to try and begin to make sense of the behavior of these doctors who are uniquely positioned to spread their own genes. There are many men in the world who are extremely polygamous and have children with many different women. Canadian man Winston Blackmore, for example, has had 149 children with 27 wives. Many men are sperm donors and can theoretically have thousands of offspring. Now, fertility clinics ensure that the sperm donor is not carrying heritable diseases, so they really legitimize the process. But some sperm donors just sidestep that time-consuming process and hustle their own sperm. They privatize their sperm donation services. Fertility experts strongly discourage this, and often when you meet some of these characters who are hustling their own sperm on the side, you kind of wish they weren't spreading their genes so widely.
I would have like a limit of maybe 2,500.
You quite like the idea of 2,500 little Joes.
I mean, it's just, I'm averaging about 10 a year, so hopefully I live that long, but I don't think so.
But at least in these cases of underground sperm donation services, it's consensual. And no doubt, if the goal is to spread genes far and wide, the most efficient way to do that is with sperm donation. For now, we can leave aside extreme polygamy, legitimate sperm donors, and sperm hustlers, and focus in on this profoundly unethical behavior of these fertility doctors who are attempting and succeeding to spread their genes by means so deceptive and unethical that it can only be described as rape.
Decided to use his own sperm instead of the sperm donor that my parents selected, and did this without their consent and without their knowledge.
I couldn't believe it. I really trusted him.
These women sought professional help from a place of desperation and vulnerability. And each of these cold-hearted doctors thoroughly dehumanized these women and saw them as nothing more than potential carriers of their own genes. Cecil Jacobson, Norman Barwin, Jan Karbat, Donald Klein, Paul Jones are just some examples, and their names are only worth mentioning so as to render them infamous and to place them into a hall of shame and to advocate for their imprisonment. Jan Karbat, for example, was in practice between the years 1980 and 2009. He helped over 6,000 women conceive children who gave birth to over 10,000 children. Thanks to the ease of genetic testing, at this point, 49 of those children have discovered that Jan was actually their biological father, and they have found each other. But in all likelihood, there are many more offspring of this narcissistic psychopathic doctor. And this is extremely problematic because the likelihood of incest increases dramatically when people don't know they're related and they live in the same region. So what is the psychology behind these doctors' disgusting behavior? The spread his genes interpretation is part of it, but it's not nearly enough to understand what's really happening here. There is also this sense of invincibility, which is the signature mindset of a teenager. And it shows that although they may have developed their intellectual faculties throughout medical school and all that, as far as social maturity and the ability to engage in mature, professional, or casual relationships, they are completely developmentally arrested. This is also extremely narcissistic. These men really thought that they were that important that the world needed more of their genes. True to the narcissist mentality, they were attempting to escape their own ending. The most unbearable thought to a narcissist is the thought of not existing. And this is not a comfortable thought for anybody, but to the diagnosable narcissist, it's unbearable. It provokes intense anxiety. There's also this extreme lack of empathy that is reflective of being a psychopath. Absolutely no capacity to pause and think, what if that were me? What if I were her and someone were lying to me, deceiving me into thinking that I was being inseminated with the sperm of my husband or of a donor that I carefully chose? What if I was in her position? To me, this raises the question of whether men should even be fertility doctors. And granted, I'm sure there are many very good men who are fertility doctors, so no shade on them, but maybe women are just better qualified for this. And it also raises the bigger question, how is this not illegal? And unfortunately, I think that we are going to discover many, many more cases of this. When you have a natural evolutionary impulse to spread your genes channeled through a developmentally arrested psychopathic narcissist, you have a very dangerous character. The legacy of a virtuous man, even one with no genetic offspring, will always outshine and outlive the legacy of a sinful man who managed to propagate his genes.
If you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe.